your team members or group leader can actually account for you. So we've created a form which we are going to share, and we expect that you submit the details right to your group leaders, so that we can find a way to add you to your respective groups. Yeah, so for those of you who might not have been in the groups because you didn't check your mails, just try and check your mails regularly. And when you see mails from us, try and always click and know what it is, so I don't miss out on any information. Yeah, so like we talked about the demo show, there are like four directions for which to build our apps, or to carry out the assignment. So the Ele and some of the dev guys have worked on some areas that you can build your projects. So that we've also shared the documents with the team leaders. They will share with their teams, and about how the show proposal should be, right? So first of all, we have 50 groups that will build projects and submit them using a Google form. Okay, there are a few details you actually just process on the document, the demo show document. Maybe your team leaders have already shared with you, but we can actually go over it again, right? So just before Yile comes, Yile, are you back?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
We can maybe just go over this shortly, especially the areas that users can build projects on, so that everybody is aware before the lecture for today. Okay, cool. Yeah. Do you want to share on this, or should I proceed?
Yeah. I want to show some details to introduce about the final demo. Okay, so I have seen that a lot of students just ask about their grouping question problems, like they haven't been contacted by their team leader or the standard about how they can be grouping or not. The last time I have been mentioned about you should finish the assignment before last Saturday, I guess. Yeah. So everyone who finished their week 3 and week 4, and maybe week 5. Week 5 is not forced at all. And if you finished week 3 or week 4 assignment, you will be involved in a list. In a list that you can be grouped by us, and we will distribute you to some team leader. According to recent status, we find out there are maybe 5 or 6 team leader just lost contact now. So we distribute these members to a new team leader. So maybe they will send you email recently. And I guess for some reason, I don't know, maybe the team leader send the email to the team members' email address, but they haven't received the email yet. Maybe the service blocked this email, or for some unknown reason that you guys haven't received those emails. So there are some solution here. After this Sunday, after this masterclass, we will give you guys a second Google form for those guys who have been finished our our assignment and meet the requirement about finish week 3 and week 4 assignment, those guys can fill the Google form and give us your Discord ID or Telegram ID or some other informations. So after we check the original email is in the list that can join in the final demo show, that we will give your another information to your captain. So your captain will contact you again, and maybe they will solve those problems. Okay, and that's about the grouping things. So other than the grouping things, after your captain contact you, you will become a team. And I hope everyone can cooperate well and communicate well in the team. So here I give you some information or some suggestions about the demo show. So the demo show will be 1 month later. I don't know the exact time at now, but we will give you the exact time later. And there will be some steps for you guys. Like the first steps is you guys need to give us, every team need to submit a short video to introduce your project and help us to understand what your innovation or some other standards, other functions of your project. And the second is we will choose 10 best group or maybe 8 best group to choose them for the live demo. And on the live demo, every team can live introduce their project, and there will be a Q&A part. Okay, so after that, we will judge about which one about their rank of the final demo. So about the rule, we have been there will be a pre-demo before the final demo. Everyone uploaded their video about their project. We will upload it to the YouTube, and I will share the link to the Discord channel. Everyone can see all of the video of all the project, and you guys can watch the one by one or choose some interesting project that you like. And after you choose your favorite project, you can vote by a web page, and this web page will connect to a smart contract. So we will use blockchain technology to record the vote result, and this vote result will write 20% about the rank in final demo show. Okay, so about that, and maybe we will give some prize to the winners in the final demo. We will give 1,500 total. Like the first winner, first prize is 600, and second prize is 500, and third prize is 400. The money is not a lot, I guess, but there will be some extra reward for you guys. Like we will give some great contribution guys that we evaluated as they give a great contribution to this masterclass project, or they give a great contribution to their own project. They build a very innovative project. So with those consideration, we will give some of those guys a unique NFT or some improvements that can be so after that, we can check these guys or contact with these guys about their future development or future application creation. So they will get our support, like about white matrix support and Binance support or other famous guys support. So yeah, that maybe will help you guys to grow up more faster. Yeah. Okay. So about the price, yeah, that's the that's like that. So I'm going to give you some information about the demo show. You will receive this file after we finished about the details. This is just a draft. After we finished about these details, we will give this document to the team leader, and team leader will share to you guys. So you can see there are 4 directions here, but it's not limited to this 4 directions. You guys can communicate with your team leader or team member, and you guys can choose some other direction that you are interested in, or you think it will be a very good creation. So after that, you can do your own job. But yeah, here I'm going to introduce those 4 directions. The first direction I suggest you guys to do is the staking and the farm project, like I told in the week 5. Yeah, and I think this will be a easiest project because I have been introduced about the logic in a staking and a farm project. But even if it's the easiest one, there are still a lot of detail that you guys can improve to build a very successful staking and farm project, because there should be some implements about like how to distribute the money and how to encourage people to stake money to your project. There are so many things that you guys can do. So maybe I suggest some of you can choose the staking and farm project. And the second direction is the algorithm stablecoin project, like use the rebase system to build a stablecoin, or some other system that just use the rebase mechanism. And about those 2 projects, I have been uploaded the source code on the GitHub that you can see the smart contract source code. And maybe after this week or next week, I will give you guys about the UI code. I will also upload it to the GitHub repository. And the third is the Uniswamp-like project. If someone have been learned about the Uniswamp code or this project, you will find out the Uniswamp open source is on code to everyone on the GitHub. You can find its AI code, UI code, and SDK code, and the Uniswamp smart contract code on the GitHub. So maybe if you are deep in the Solidity technology, you can choose to make a Uniswamp-like project, because I think this will be a little bit difficult to most of the beginners. So I'm not very suggestive to beginners to choose this project. Yeah. And the demo link you can find out on GitHub of Uniswamp repository. Okay, and the 4th direction is suggested by Akin, our Andrea. So there is an insurance project, like you can create an insurance policy on the smart contract. You can set the condition, like when will the insurance will be triggered, and how to make the compensation to the owner. So you can make your own way to design an insurance project. Okay, and Akin also put some demo here, like there is a insurance project on Binance Smart Chain called Helmet, and other is Torteria. So maybe you guys can take those projects as an example to build your own. And I hope every members come into the team, and they can make a communication with their team, with other teammates or the leader about the work division, because the good collaboration with each other is the most important thing in this project. So I hope you guys can work well. And for those who haven't joined to your team, don't worry. We will give you the new form in 2 days, maybe. Yeah. Okay, that's the most of things about final demo. So now we are going to start today's class. Yeah, okay. So can you guys see me now? Let me have a look about, okay, a minute. How to see the, okay. Okay, let's start today's class. Hello everyone, I'm Eli Prophet, and maybe this is the first time you guys see me now. A lot of people, I receive a lot of people worry about the front end part of the project. Like they don't have a lot of experience of how to build application front end. So today I'm going to talk about how to make a combination of front end and the back end. The most general back end we are talking about is the solidity on the blockchain, right? So today I'm going to talk about how to build a front end page and use this front end page to interact with the back end. So we will use some technology like this. The first is the HTML, and the second is CSS. This is another format in the HTML. And the third is JavaScript. This is another language, script language to interact with the EVM, the blockchain infrastructure. Okay. So there will be three parts in our today's project. The first is how to create a web page by HTML. I will introduce some basic grammar about HTML. And the second part is I will use JavaScript to interact with the EVM, and I will display the result on the web page by use JavaScript in a HTML file. And the part three is I will build a preview a project by Chain IDE. This project is built by our CEO Wu Xiao, and I will introduce you guys about this project. How can you build a project and interact it with the smart chain and only use the Chain IDE? The Chain IDE can achieve that function. Okay, let's start today's class now. Okay, and now we are going to talk about HTML. Most websites in the world are now designed and programmed by HTML. This is the most widely used language to program the web page. And HTML elements are the cornerstone of building a website. HTML allows images and objects to be embedded and can be used to create interactive forms. It is used to structure information such as headings, graphs, and this and something, yeah, etc. Okay, so at first, we are going to talk about some features of the HTML. The first thing is what HTML is. HTML, in fact, is a hypertext markup language. There are some points here, like the first thing is a markup language. What does it mean markup? Like you can use some tag to define elements, and what will be the elements in the smart contract. There are so many elements that I will introduce you to guys later. So there are the other things in the HTML is the text. The text is the basic elements in the smart contract. Okay, sorry guys, I need to log out my. Okay, and the second is the standard markup language for creating web pages. So I have no need to talk more about this, right? Because this is most widely used language around the world. And the third is it describes the structure of the web page. You know, the structure of the web page is very important when you want to make a web page. Like if you want to make a web page by its, the first thing is you need to define its head. Like when you want to create a web page, what will happen if you just open the web page? The first thing is that will display some information at the header like this. Like if you want to open a web page and you can see some information here. This means head. This is some information that includes in the head. And this part is some information that include in the page, okay? And the third is it consists of a series of elements. So the web page is not consist only one element. It consists by many elements. Like here, I make a syntax here. So there is a title, right? Title element and some text elements. There are many text elements here. Like P is a graph elements. H is a head element. So I will introduce them later. And the HTML elements tell the browser how to display the content. So the different elements can help the browser to understand what the developer want to display their web page. So after the browser receive or phrase the information that the developer write in the HTML file, they will use a different way to display the text. Okay, and I guess that's the most information about the HTML. And later I will talk about the details. Let's look at the basic structure of HTML file. So when we code a HTML file, the first line that we should use the tag. Okay, maybe I should talk about tag first. Like if there are many elements in a HTML file, where to define these type of elements? Like how should we, if we want to define a title, maybe you notice that we use angle brackets contain the tag name to define a HTML element. So this is tag name. You can define like a title. You can put title here and put the text. You want to use this title element to use, and you can use left slash to end this element description. Okay, so with this whole part, that means you finish the definition of one element. And you can see here, every tag is corresponding to an end tag. One start tag corresponding to an end tag. This is a format about the HTML file. Okay, and when we want to code a HTML file, the first thing is how will the browser explain or phrase this file? If you want the browser to phrase this file as HTML, the first thing is you need to write down this. You need to write down this sentence in the first line. You need to write down this. You need to write down the exclamation mark and the doc type and HTML to tell the browser that you want this file to be phrased by the HTML5 sender. Okay. And the second thing is after you define the HTML file, and there is another feature about the HTML file. like we just defined HTML element, right? The HTML element is the most biggest or outside element in a HTML file. There are several elements will be in the HTML tag. Something like head and body, and div means an area, and h1 or some other p elements. So which you can see here is HTML elements can be nested. Like the h1 is nested in the div tag, right? So the elements can be nested one by one, and it can be nested by HTML, nested the head, and nested the div, and nested h1. So this is nested by one. This structure helps the HTML file to be according and sort very well. So when the developer want to create a HTML file, they can follow in those steps to create one element to the other elements. It can help you to do the develop job. Okay, and I just introduced about what HTML file look like, and what's the feature about HTML file. And now I'm going to introduce some details about the HTML grammar, like how many elements in the HTML file. In fact, there are more than those elements that I have been mentioned here. There are still other elements. Here are just some basic elements that we will frequently use in our daily program. So the first is, if you want to put a link in our HTML file, what should we do? There is a tag named A. You can use A to describe a link or hyperlink reference in the web page. And you need to use the keyword href, hyperreference, to define a website link or some path to let the users can select these elements can go to the destination. Okay, and the second element is the image. You can use the image tag to describe or to link an image file in your system, in your file system. Like if I put it here, you can input an image file from your own system and put it on the web page. And you can specify their width or height or some other character. Okay. The third is the most widely used elements in the HTML file, I guess, because if you want to put some normal general words on the web page, you may use these elements. This element named P phrase. If you want to put some text, you can use these elements to put it on your web page. Okay, and here is the header elements. There are several different levels of the header elements from 1 to 5. And 1 is the biggest element, biggest size of the header. Like if you use the H1, this header size will be very big. But if you use H5, this header will be smaller. Okay. And if you want to make some comments in the HTML file, you can use this. You can use exclamation mark and with 2 line and to put some comments in your HTML file. Okay, and this is the tag to define a block level element. Like if you want to define a block, and this block will include some other elements. You can use the div keywords to define a block level elements. And there is another element named span. Span is a kind of interesting tag, interesting element. Like if you have a sentence here, if you have a hello world here, and if you give this element an ID, then when you change the character of this ID, the whole text will change. The whole text character will change. But what if you want to only change the word? This word was in this sentence, and don't want to change the hello. Maybe you can use span. You can put span here and use span to describe the word text, and then give another ID to the span. So it will give the word a specific ID. Then you can change this ID's character. Then only the word character will be changed. Okay, and the last is a button. Like everything, when you have a search engine, when you enter Google, right? You put some text in the input box, and once you click the search button, then the web page will help you to search, right? So this button gives an interaction path for the users to interact with the web page, and it has a character named onClick. Like when the people clicked this button, it will trigger the onClick function. What you write down here. Like once you click the tweets button, you click it, and the get tweets function will be triggered. So there are so many elements in the HTML file. You can learn it on W3 school on the internet by yourself, because yeah, it's many divisions, disqualifications about the HTML elements. You can learn it by yourself. I think it will work better. Okay, and the third things I want to talk about is the CSS. The HTML can only provide the text information to the web page. But if you want to decorate it, like if you want to change some color or some format about the text, what can you do? I think you can use the CSS. The CSS full name is Cascading Style Sheets. You can use CSS to describe how elements on the screen, on the paper, audio, or other media should be rendered. And I think with the CSS decoration, the web page will become more colorful. But how can we use CSS in the HTML file? There are three ways to use CSS in the web page. The first is the inline way. Like you use the CSS just in the HTML elements, like here. You can use the style keywords to trigger the CSS phraser. Like I put some CSS format sentence here. The color is blue, equal to blue, and use style to decorate it. Then there will be a responding change here. Like with this description, this text will change its color to blue. So this is very simple to understand, right? And this is the same way, and I changed its color to red. So this text just changed to red. This is the inner way. There is another way in the HTML file to decorate the web page. If you use a style code here, right? You use the style to code, then you can put some relative ID or some class in the style like this. If you define someone's class is cities, or some H1 or P, those IDs, those text ID in the style, and give this style some information. Like I want this text line in the center. I want to give some specific front of the text. So with this description, this will automatically change the same ID or same class in the web page. So this is the second way to use the CSS in the HTML file. There is a third way that I mean it's the external way. You can build a CSS file outside of the HTML file and just link it to the CSS file. You can use the link element to link an extra CSS file to the HTML file. Then this file will be executed too. Okay. So now I think you guys know how to decorate the HTML file by the CSS, right? And here is an example about I'm going to build on the Chain IDE. This application's name is Lonely Twitter. Like you can send some Twitter on this web page, and only you can get it, or some others on the blockchain who have this same contract address can get it too. So here I just define the header, right? I have a header. Its name is transparent demo, and I change it color by use the CSS language. And here there are two buttons. One is get all tweets, and the other is write lonely Twitter. And here are two text. One is the name and following by a text box. The other is the content, like what tweets content you want to post. You can just write it down here. Okay, and here is the status about this application. So after I introduced about the HTML, and then I'm going to introduce about the JavaScript. The JavaScript is, I think, is more important and complicated than the HTML file, because HTML file is just static. The static thing is kind of boring, although you can decorate and it looks good, but it's still kind of boring when you look at it or when you want to interact with it. So then you can use JavaScript to make a script program and help the HTML file can be interact with the users. Okay, so let me introduce the JavaScript language at first. JavaScript is a script and a programming language which can implement complex functions on web pages. The web pages no longer show you simple static information, but show you the real-time contents updates. Like with the JavaScript, you can vivid the information on the web page can be vivid. Okay. And so let's see how to use JavaScript in the HTML. When you want to write down a JavaScript code block in the HTML file, you need to use a script element. Every text in the script area will be read as the JavaScript code. So here I just use some easy JavaScript sentence to show you guys how to use the JavaScript code in the HTML. Here I just use a function, like I want to get a document and get element by ID info. I just predefined an H2 element here. This is a header element, right? But there is nothing inside. So I just put a ID named info to this H2 element. So I can use the document dot get element by ID info to link this h2 element and this a variable in the JavaScript. After that, I can use this sentence. Like I can set the text in this h2 tag, in this h2 elements by inner HTML and give some text to it. Like I give the 1, 2, 3 to this a variable, then it will display here. And there is another thing here, like this is just an h2 element, right? But if we have a input box, like if you use the Google, there will be, you want to search something. The first thing is you text some information on the text box first. Like you want to search about chain ID, you need to text in the chain ID in the text box. And when you click the search button, how do you get the chain ID, this text from the text box? How can you do that? You can use this document.getElement by ID. You can give that text box an ID, and you can put the ID here. And you can use the dot value to get its value. Like you put the chain ID text inside, then you can get the chain ID back to the JavaScript and and assign it to another variable. And then you can use this text in your program. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about some library in the JavaScript. Because here I'm going to teach you guys how to interact with an EVM, with the blockchain, right? So if we want to interact with the blockchain, we need to use some code that's written by other people. So which means we need to use some library. If we want to use some library, we can use also by the script elements, and src means source code, and we can give a path to it. It can be an online path or a local file system path. So I guess there are some advantages to do this, because when one element, one HTML file can use some other JavaScript file code, then we can separate HTML and the code. The second thing is you can make a HTML file and JavaScript file easier to read and maintain, because if you just put the whole library code into your HTML file, it will be hard to read and hard to understand. If they just packaged a function to you, and you can just easily to use this function to achieve your goal, then it can be easily to used by the beginners or other developers. Okay, and the third thing is it can catch the JavaScript, and it can speed up the page loading. When you open the page, use this way can help you to speed up the speed of the open the web page. And today I will introduce you guys about a library called Webs3 Js. This is a library that can help you guys to interact with the EVM, include Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain or other Solidity, other Ethereum like environment. Only use the Web3.js library. And here I just give you a reference of the how to use Web3 JS library by an online path. You can just use this path, and I will upload the Solidity file and HTML file to the GitHub too. So what's Web3? Web3 is a collection of libraries that allows you to interact with a local or remote ETHEM node, or not only ETHEM, right? Just like ETHEM like or some BSC or Hacker or some others, EVM can also interact by the Web3 package. And it will use HTTP and IPC or WebSocket way to interact with those nodes. And in fact, the Web3 is an umbrella package to house all the ETHEM related modules. You can use it to get the account, the contract, some other information on the blockchain. And here is the example of how to import the Web3 library in the HTML file. I use the script elements to import the Web3 Js package, and then I just used a function to load the Web3 package. I use the window.ethem and window.web3. This is a new variable that defined by myself. And I just assigned the Web3 and window.ethem to this variable. So after that, we can use this variable as Web3 package. And we can use the window.ethem enable to let the window connect with the EVM. And here we just use this function on the web page. I will give you more detailed explanation when I'm coding about the project. And here, if you want to interact with some contract in the blockchain, in like BSC or ETHEM, you will need some elements to do that. The first thing is you need to know the contract API that I've been mentioned when I told you guys about the EVM, and our CTU told you guys about the EVM solidity. After you compile your file, you will get the EVM, the API, and some bytecode, right? And now you can use it here, and you can just search the contract API on the scanned website like BSC scan or Etherscan. So the API means application binary interface. Only with the API that you can interact with contract. And we can see, I give some example here. When you compile a contract on Chain IDE, the Chain IDE will give you the API here. You can just click the copy button, and then you can get the API of this project, of this Solidity file. Okay, and then you can paste it in the HTML file, and you can use the smart contract in the HTML file. But not only API, you will need another thing, the address. Like the first step is you compile your Solidity file, right? You will get your API, but it's not haven't deployed on the blockchain yet. After you finish the deployment, the EVM will give back address to you, which is the contract address. You need to copy this contract address to the HTML file. Then the HTML can find your contract. So here I just give an example. After I deploy the contract, I can find my contract here, contract address here, or you will find out after the deployment process, you can find out there are something just appeared in the interact module, and you can just copy the contract address here. About the contract address, there are some limitation to the contract address, like the contract address should be 42 character. In fact, it's only 40 character, but when we add the start 0 and X character, then there will be 42 characters. So with this address and the API input in the HTML file, we can interact with the smart contract. Okay, now I'm going to tell you how to interact with the smart contract by the JavaScript code. The first part that have been introduced earlier, right? This part is just load the Webs3 package and enable the Webs3 package, either the node in the HTML file. And here is the part that we input our have already deployed contract. Like we set two variables, one named API and one named contract address. We were assigned the API and contract address to those two variables. And we will use this sentence to define a contract. Like if we just deploy the Twitter contract, we can use this, and web window.web3, this is just defined here, right? And .eth.contract. This character is the same in the BSC and ETH. They both use ETH. And contract is a keyword to define a contract variable. Like here, this is an object named contract. And when this assignment finished, this Twitter contract will have some function or some character of the contract object. So after this definition of the contract, we can just call the function in the Twitter contract by calling it, like tweet contract dot method dot get total tweets. This is a function that we just predefined in the Solidity file. There is a function named get total tweet, and we can use it now. So dot call means we use this function in the JavaScript file. So after that, we can get a number of the get total tweets. Like this function is meant to get the tweets amount of that have been all sent to the to this contract, and we can get a uint 256 format of the value. So I can assign that value to this tweet number, and we can log it out. Console.log is a grammar to log something in the console. Okay. And after that, I need to make some explanation about the async and await keyword in the function. Like if we have something that we need to do, but it's not immediately finished. Like if you need to wait a lot of calculation, or you need to wait some information to get back, then you may need the await keyword to wait this this sentence finished. Then you can go to the next sentence. Like if you use the await here, then it will go to the next sentence and finish all this function after it finished the contract, like after it fetch the contract value. So only if you have the await keyword in a function, this function should be async function, because this async function and await keyword is corresponding. If you have the await function, await sentence in the function, this function has to be the async function. I guess you guys just remember that, and maybe you can look for some informations on the internet, because it will be a little bit hard to understand about the promise a promise mechanisms. It will relate it to when you execute some function, but it's not finished yet, what we'll do in the JavaScript program. So here, just remember that await means this function is not finished or execute immediately. You need to wait a little bit time to wait it finished. So you will use the await keyword to decorate this sentence. And only or if you have any await keywords in the function, this function should be async function. Just remember that, okay? So after the introduction to the HTML file and the JavaScript, I'm going to start our today's program. The program is programmed by our CEO Wu Xiao, and its name is Lonely Twitter. So there are two functions of this application. The first function is you can send Twitter. This Twitter can include some things, like include the sender's name and the content of this tweet. The second is you can get all Twitter. You can get the all past Twitter that have been sent before. These are two functions of this application. And there is a very interesting thing here. Like, although I just told it, is the project of this is Lonely Twitter, right? It seems like it can only use by yourself. But in fact, anyone who has this contract address and this contract API, which all can be searched by the scan, the BS scan or either scan website, then they can interact with the contract and post their own Twitters. So in some level, this application can be used by everyone in the world. So it's not lonely enough, in fact, yeah. And here, this is its UI, and you can see there are some elements here. The first is about its head and its content and its get all tweets function and the write long Twitter function. And here is the in text box to write out your tweet and your name. So this is kind of very simple application, but I think it uses the character of the blockchain. And I think it will be a good tutorial for you guys to learn about how to build a HTML project and how to use it to interact with the EVM. Okay, here are some architecture of this program. There are two parts of it. The first part is you need to write out a smart contract at first. You need to write out a smart contract which can store the tweets and can get the new tweets and can return the number of the tweets of all tweets, some function like that. So you should write out a Solidity file. The second part is you need to write out an HTML and JavaScript file to make a homepage and use this homepage to interact with EVM to write down the Twitter or get all of the Twitter. So here are some variables and functions about how to achieve the store and the get Twitter function. There are tweets ID. This means how many tweets that have been sent, and the structure of the tweets. Like structure of the tweets will include the ID, right? The name of the Twitter sender and the content of the tweet. And there will be an array to store those tweets. And there are three functions here. The first is how to create a tweet. Like if someone just want to post a tweet, it will use the create tweet function. And the second is get total tweets. This function will return the number of the total tweet. Like if there are 8 tweets before, this function will return 8. And the last function is get tweet detail. This function will return the detail of the tweets. Like they will return the Twitter sender's name, the Twitter's content, yeah, etc. So there is and some other things that we need to define in the HTML and the JavaScript file. The first is the static content, like the header content, the button, some input box, text box, some static content. And the second is the style part, like how to change the color of the header, how to change the style of the text, some other elements in the HTML file. Okay, and there are some other things in the JavaScript file or JavaScript code programming part. The first is you need to import libraries. The first libraries, what you need to input is the Webs3 Js, right? And maybe in the further programming, you will need the either.js package too. And maybe you can explore it by yourself. And you will need to use the load web page 3 because the first thing is you import it, but you not use it in your HTML file. And the third is you need to use the load contract function. This function is designed by yourself, and this function can achieve the goal that they can load the contract in this JS function. And maybe you can design those function name and function details by yourself, and maybe you can achieve it by your way. But here I just give you guys some examples, like how many steps that you will be used when you want to define a HTML file that you want to interact with the Solidity contract, smart contract. Okay. And those details about how to get the tweet and how to get the MetaMask or Binance account on the web page, and how to load the JS file, and how to update the text on the HTML page. Okay, and this is the basic introduction of this project, and now I'm going to program it. So I will give some explanation about which part can achieve what function. The first thing is about the Lonely Twitter Solidity file. In the Lonely Twitter Solidity file, we will first define, just as I told you guys before, like we need to define the compiled version, we need to define a contract, and define an event. This event will triggered or emit when we use the post Twitter, create Twitter function. And we will give the initialization of the Twitter ID. When the contract deployed, the Twitter ID will be 0. And we just defined a Twitter structure. This structure will contain 3 elements. The first is the Twitter ID, the second is the Twitter name, and the third is the Twitter's content. And we will give array, use this tweet structure to build an array named tweets. These tweets will use the Twitter structures elements by store some tweeters here. And when you want to use some arrays that with not a fixed length, you need to use the push and pop to control its length. So here, when you use the create tweet function, you need to input the name of the Twitter sender and the content of the tweet. And then it will trigger this function. This function means you will input a tweet variable, this Twitter struct variable. And the elements in the Twitter struct variable will be Twitter's ID and the sender's name and the content. And use push function to push it into the tweets variable. So once you create it, one variable will be pushed to the tweets variable. And we will give a +1 to the tweets ID variable. And emit the new Twitter events. Okay, and here I'm going to create, and this is just a function that package this function and use it, can be used outside, but you can just change this private to public and just use the same function. You can do that. Okay, and the second is get total tweets. Like with this, you can use dot legends feature character to get the tweets arrays length, and it will returns you in 256 type of the variable. And the last function is get tweet detail. With this function, you will use the underline tweet ID. You should input the ID of the tweet that you want to know, and it will returns the ID, the details of the tweet. It will return the ID, the name, the content. Okay. That's all of the solidity file of the lonely Twitter. And then I'm going to talk about the chat room HTML file. So at start, the chat room HTML file just start with the start HTML declaration, right? Like this file is built by, it should be phrased by the HTML5 standard. And we used HTML element here. And the head and the style, there is something named header here. So when we use some header ID or some header elements, then this style will change its display way, the way of its display. Okay, so in the style is CSS format, right? Okay, so after that, I just declare some standards of the HTML file. Maybe you can just skip this part. And here I just declare outside package of the Webs3 Js. So this is the first part in the head element. And I'm going to show you how to use the use chain ID to make a preview of your HTML file. Like you can just preview your code just in this window. You can click this button, and you can see the preview window here. And if I change if I change those kind of things, then you can see directly change in this preview window. Like if I delete this part and use the, okay, wait a minute. Oh, this is not, okay. This is not the title of this, because this header won't be appear in the, it should be like this web pages. It will show here, but in our own file system, it won't show any informations of the head part. So when we change the text in the body, like if we change the demo, if we delete it, it will directly influence the text on the preview page. It will directly make the change. So you can just preview your code and make some changes directly. It will help you to program a better project. Yeah. Okay. And so after that, I'm going to introduce about the body part. The body part, the first is about its header. We use H2 to define a text means transparent depth demo. And then the BR means we just give them a break. A break will give them one line of the blank. And then we will give it a H2 element, but there is nothing inside, right? But we give it an ID, we will use it later. ID is info. And then we just give a button here. The button will be use the get tweets function, and the text of the button will be get all tweets. This means this function, this button. And the second button is the change cool number, and this function have been written down in the JavaScript part, and we can use this function by click this write lonely tweet button. And there are some input text box here. You should put an input here at first, and the text box as end. So you can build a input text box by this way. There is nothing inside at first. Okay, and after that you can change the input name, like, because the first thing we want them to input is the name, right? And the second things that we want to input is the content. Okay, so after that, we will go to the next part. Then it's the status. When the status means, well, you can change the status text to tell users what process they have been interacting with the smart contract. It's just output to the users that they can know how their web page going. Okay, after the HTML part, we can go to the JavaScript. Okay, when we want to define the JavaScript, we use the script elements. So at first, we just defined an ID named a variable named a, and it will get the info element that we just pre-declare there here. And the first function is we will use the load Web3 function to load the Web3 package. The second is we will use the load contract function to load our contract. This contract is related to our Solidity file, right? And the third is the get tweet function. With this get tweet function, we can interact with the function and the contract that we predefined in the earlier window contract. Like I will show you later. Like this, we can get the Twitter number here, and we can use the Twitter number to update to get the Twitter detail, and we can display the Twitter detail on this web page. Okay, and this function get current account means we can get our current account address to display on some place, or we can use this account to interact with some other function or other smart contract. And here is the function that we just mentioned. When we click the button of write lonely Twitter, it will use the change cool number function, right? The change cool number function will use the up status this function. It will change the text here. It will change it to updating lonely Twitter, and it will get our Twitter account. It will get our MetaMask account, and change the Twitter. Give it to make a transaction to the EVM. We will build a transaction to the EVM and create a new Twitter. Then it will be updated. Okay. And here is the main function of a load, because with this function, it's called the load Web3 function, and it's called the load contract function. So with this, we execute the initialization. And here I just explained earlier. Okay, so after you declare all of the function, you need to write down the load here, because when you deploy the web page, what do you want to do at first? You need to do the initialization of this web page, right? So only with you call this load function, you can execute the initialization of this web page. So you need to write it down here. Okay, so after this, I just finished the explanation of the HTML file and the Solidity file. Let me show you how to use this application now. So let's change to the lonely Twitter first here. And the first is okay, I deleted the first. The first thing is that we choose the appropriate compiler and click the compile lonely Twitter. Okay, so now we get the lonely Twitter Solidity files API and bytecode. And then we do the deploy process to this contract. Okay, so we choose the corresponding file about the compilation and click the deploy button. Confirm. Okay. After the confirmation, chain ID will give you the detail of this Solidity file, like how many functions in the lonely Twitter contract. There are 4 functions, right? And the 3 is read function, only the yellow one. The created is the post function. Like you can interact with it and build a transaction. Okay, now you have been finished the deployment process of the smart contract. You need to change some information in the HTML file. Do you remember the 2 elements? The first is the API, the second is address. Okay, so at first we just copy the API at first. We copy it and we go to the HTML file and we find out the place that we load the contract. And we just change the API. We change it, okay? And then we are going to get the address of this smart contract. We can use this one, this copy button to get the lonely Twitter's smart contract address. And then we just go back to the HTML file and paste it here, paste it. Okay, and then we just finish the changes of the smart contract, the HTML file, and then we can preview it. Click this, and okay, we just finished the preparation. Then we can use this application now. The first thing is if I click the get all tweets button now, there will be nothing here because when you click it, okay, all Twitter's number is 0. There is no Twitter post before because I just deployed this smart contract, right? But if I just post Twitter here, like hello world, okay, I just write down the content here and I just click the button, write lonely Twitter. It will generate a transaction and you need to click the confirm. Then there will be a transaction sent to the EVM and interact with the Solidity file, interact with the smart contract and insert the value of the Twitter to the, okay, it's confirmed. After that, I can click the get all Twitters button again. Okay, there will be a Twitter here, right? And if I just changed a new one, like teacher, hello, students, and I write it again, it is It's updated now. And did you notice that when the confirmation not confirmed yet, the status is still pending, and after it's confirmed, this status just changed to update. This process is achieved by this sentence, by the update sentence, update status function. Okay, then we get all tweeters click it again, and you will get the all tweeters again. And you will notice there are some bugs here because I use the a.inner HTML. It will add the existing text word at start, and then they will add the some resource after the beginning text. So if we just refresh it and click it again, then it will be okay. And maybe you guys can find out some way to fix this bug by yourself. And maybe this will be a live assignment. Yeah. And I guess you guys know how to build a web page by HTML file and JavaScript, and how to interact with the smart contract that have been deployed on the EVM. So maybe you won't be worried about how to create a project. For the final demo, we want create a very strict standard for you guys to create a very perfect or fantastic project. We only want you guys to use some technology that you learned from the class to build some easy or very innovative but not complicated. If you are a beginner, not very complicated project to show that you have been do a lot of work to this masterclass, and you have learned a lot from this masterclass. That's the best thing that we want to see. Okay, so this almost is all of the things of this masterclass. And if you guys have some questions, just paste on the comments. Wait a minute, please. You mentioned of people have not done assignment. I've been asking here how can do assignment. You said check this part to find answer. Yeah. The assignment is on the chain classes. I think most of you guys knows about that. Yes. Please can we get this document? The document after we finished about the detail, we will distribute it to the team leader, and I will distribute it on the Discord channel maybe. Yeah. When we are getting a Google form precisely, because I can't afford to miss out this. It means a lot. I have been called all the assignment, but I have no team. If you complete all the assignment before last Saturday, then you can finish the Google form. Yeah, okay. I will advise important message up into the Discord possible. Yeah, if we distribute the second time of the Google form, we will pin the message to the in the Discord channel. Yeah. Okay, yeah, okay, we received this advice. Can you give us a clue to write the Uniswamp project or codes to use to write the project? The code of the Uniswamp project just display on the Uniswamp official website. You can search by yourself, just Google it. Yeah, it's open source. How do you decide what compiled version to use for your account contracts? I have been mentioned how to define the contract compiled version. When you use the pragma keywords to define the contract compiled version, it will define what kind of or what version of compiler that you need to use. You can just read the pragma sentence and choose the appropriate compiler. Wait a minute. Can you decide what? explain when saving structure to array and difference between use storage for updating structured memory keywords that get involved in use mapping and the saves and retrieve update structure properties. The memory means this thing is not stored on the blockchain, so it will not use gas. But if you use the storage keywords, it will use the gas. But in the higher version of the Solidity, it won't mention a lot about these keywords a lot. Only in the input, they will use the memory to restrict about the array or mapping or some variables there. So when you define a variable outside the function, but in the contract, this variable will be the storage variable. Sorry, can you guys hear me? Yeah,
I can hear you.
how do we make sure we are connected to BSC node and in the node? If you go to the, okay, if you use MetaMask and if you use MetaMask, then you can choose the network by yourself. We have the tutorial about how to set a RPC of the Binance node, Binance Smart Chain node on our Chain ID homepage. Okay, this is Hashif Cape Overs. Not sure why my name is appearing as above. It's okay, yeah. Please, of those have not been grouped, is there any chance that they are grouped? If you are not have been in a group, but you meet the standard that before last Saturday you finished the week 3 and week 4 assignment, then we will give you guys a second form. You can fill in it and submit it to us. We will check if this guy's email is corresponding or is in our list, because we have select the people who finished the week 3 and the week 4 assignment in the chain classes. So please use the same email address as the chain classes when you register the chain classes. Okay. So wait, do we have to click the MetaMask transaction when interacting with the yeah, you always have to click the MetaMask transaction when you interact with the web page. But if you use the local environment to code the JS and maybe you have storage your private key to the node or to some local environments, then the system will automatically help you to execute those processes. How do we connect to from say a Java, PHP, Node.js backend? Yeah, in fact, the same as Node.js. I don't know about Java and PHP, but if you use Node.js, it's just the same way when you use like JavaScript in the HTML. It's just the same way. And there are some tutorial about Web.js package in the website in the internet, I guess. Okay, I just see somebody. How do you create buy token function so that people can buy the token from you, your website, and also how do you get the payment? Okay, like if you create a buy token function, so the first thing is that you should create a modifier that you specify the person who can distribute your token to others. Like only you can do that, and you can connect this function to a website. When you receive this buy token function, like they send the ETH to you and or BNB to you, then you can send some other token. You can change the balance of their address and they distribute money to them. So that's the process of buy token. Thank you for your information to connect smart change. Okay, we can get the GitHub link to this project. Yeah, you will get the GitHub link. Like I have already give you the GitHub link, I guess, in the chain classes and in the Discord channel. You can check that. What's the plan of BIS class with demo show eventually? Can Binance subgroup translate into creating a Bible project with our demo eventually? I'm not. What are you? What do you mean here? Can the Binance subgroup translate into create a crypto project with our demo eventually? I'm not. What do you mean? Do you know that, Ben?
Whose question is that?
Go to Avoska. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, but your screen is only showing the presentation, the last slide on the presentation.
Not the window, not the full of the window. Okay.
Not window.
Okay, but I don't. You see it now? Still
No.
no.
What you do is, could you copy the question?
He said, can the Binance subgroup translate it into creating a crypto project with our demo eventually? What does it mean?
Yeah, he's asking to know if we can use their projects in the future. Is that, if I'm correct? What's the person name so that we can allow him ask the question to be sure? If you ask that, please can you just chat in the group so that I would know and allow you ask.
How to add that? I'm not sure. Okay.
Is it Dotun?
Dotun Avoska.
Okay. Dotun, let me allow you ask the question. Okay, please unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah. What I was trying to ask was that after we create the demo project, I'm saying that after a while, after the whole of this, can our subgroup translate into creating a crypto project eventually?
Oh, great. So it's trying to know if they can go ahead to become to build projects in the future. Sure, you can, no doubt.
Yeah, you can. And if you build a great project in further or in the base of the final demo show, you can go further. And if you go further a lot and make a perfect project, maybe you will get some chances from us to invest or some other things.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Is message sender great? Is message sender creator of the contract offered and incorrect? The message sender means who interact with the contract, smart contract, not means the person who person interact. This is correct. The message sender means the person who interact with the contract. Can we use other technology outside what have been taught during the math class? Yeah, you can use some technology like Truffle or React framework or some web pages, but there are some limitation about the final demo show here. Like you should upload it your front end on the GitHub, and we can interact it with the front end web page to interact with the Solidity, to interact with the smart contract. And you can use some technology, but it's only supported by the GitHub server, I guess. Yeah. But I think it's better for you guys to, if you are a beginner, I suggest you guys to use ChainID because it just provides a very convenient way for you guys to develop. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you used compile version 0, but use 0. So you see, how do you decide which version do you use? Does it have any impact or availability on some Solidity functionalities? Yeah, different version of the Solidity compiler will influence the Solidity grammar. I have to say, it has a lot of changes from 0.4.0 to 0.8.0 because now the latest version of the Solidity is 0.8.2, I guess. Yeah, there are so many changes. In fact, I suggest you guys to use the version at more than 0.7.0. Yeah, that's because the latest version of the Solidity Solidity compiler can help you to create the Solidity file more. And there are some file like OpenZeppelin have been made a good library about how to make the calculate of the uint and int and some other variables. So when you want to use some package that the library they have been finished, you have to use the same compile version as them. So that's why we use a different version of the Solidity file. Okay. But we'll do this week. Is there any chance of him? I'm sorry if you not complete your week 3 and week 4 assignment before last Saturday, because we have told you guys about that deadline of the submission a lot of times. So I guess maybe if you really want to join this master class and learn a lot from it, you should finish the assignments of week 3 and week 4 before last Saturday. Yeah. When we are going to getting form of to groups, I guess in 2 days. Yeah. You can get the Google form of the second times grouping collection in 2 days. Yeah. And data collected front end be stored in database and can be used in smart contract to prevent the use of gas. Because you store the database in your front end, that means it's not on the blockchain, right? This part logic is not confirmed by the blockchain, so it's not decentralized, it's centralized, which means it can't be trusted by the others. They won't trust you when you store your data in your front end or in your database. They only trust the information on the blockchain, and everyone can see that. Okay. Yeah. I saw someone. Please check your email. That's the email you register the chain classes and finish the assignment. Okay. And then if you think you meet the requirement and not being grouped yet, and you can fill the second Google form. Yeah, because if if there are some other people just fill it, we will filter those people. Just
yeah. So Ile,
yeah.
Ile.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I am trying to. I'm trying to share the form with all of them who have not gotten it now. Should I share it now or leave it till Sunday?
You mean what form?
The form for those who have not been assigned to a group.
Okay, the second times Google form, right? You can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't log in now. When you create this form, you need to open the limitation.
Yeah. I actually closed it for now, but I want to know if I should.
Okay. I think you can. Maybe later. Maybe you can
Okay,
have.
sure. Let me just check with Jeff and then I'll open it later. Well, that's the
Okay.
form. I will share it with you on Discord.
Yeah. Okay. Can you read some Binance front end in the Binance function? Yeah, you can use React front end in the. No, you can't create a front end in the Binance function because Binance function is just a blockchain. You want to create some front end and you just publish on the server or your own computer. You can't just upload it on the blockchain. Okay. Oh, I didn't share. I share my last week's rebase system on the GitHub. Just the same GitHub repository. Okay. If you check the repository again, you can see those. Let me have a look. You can see they are week 4, week 5, and week 3, week 6, and I will upload it this week's file here too. Yeah. And the question, is there a way to store a file or on file on chain? Yeah, there is a blockchain named IPFS. When you want to store some image, some video, some media things on the blockchain, you can store the things to the IPFS. Yeah. I'm sorry about that because I think you guys can see the question on my screen, but I think it's not appeared on my screen yet. Okay. And the time is near to 7, is near to 1 o'clock. So maybe this class will end it now. And I will still check the Telegram and the Discord channel. So if you guys have any confusion or some problems about our project, you can just give us the feedback. And also, if you have any question about Chain IDE and develop things, you can join the Chain IDE Telegram and get in our and share your experience or share your feedback there. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's maybe.
All right, thanks everybody for your time. And remember, please sync up with your teams and, team leaders, please communicate in the best possible ways with your team members. Not everybody will understand it. So if you can, split the tasks based on team strength. And if you have team members who want to partake in numerous tasks, you can afford to, just draw up a very nice schedule that favors every of your team members, right? Then if you have suggestions, please drop it in the Discord channels for other teams to benefit from. In this particular cohort, just try as much as possible to assist the person closest to you. Thank you so much for your time. If you have more questions, please drop them in the TG or direct them through your leaders to us. We'll be very fine to answer. Thank you so much, Yile. All right, bye guys.
Bye guys.